Okay, you guys, let's do this. It's going to be so professional. Like, so professional. Here we go. Well, welcome to the Live Support Podcast with your hosts, Michele VanDusen and June Colson, a couple of clean comedians who support each other and others through comedy's wacky and winding roads. I hope you're ready. Get set. Let's go. Since podcasts have a catchy tune, we wrote this song for Michele and June. Clean comedians are best friends too. Oh, it's so good. And you never know what they'll say or do. Here we go, sing with me on Live Support, with Michele, who's really short. We'll have a ball, with June, who's really tall. They have fun, interviewing comedians on Live Support, with Michele, who's really short. Now it's time to start Live Support.
The Live Support Podcast is brought to you by the Hot Breath Comedy Network.
Wow, give yourself a round of applause. Woo! That was magic. Welcome to the award-winning Laugh Support Podcast. I'm your host, June Colson, here with Michele with one L, Trisha's sister, Rhonda Colson, Corey's friend. Do not call me Shelly. Michele VanDusen. Michele, how we doing?
Good. If I seemed a little frazzled or a little distracted today, we are under a whole tornado thing.
Oh.
Yeah, in fact, apparently just north of us, something's happening right now. So there you go. Yep.
Well,
So
which way is it headed? Is it north headed south, or is it what's happening?
It's north headed east. So I've got my hard hat ready just in case, because it's not the tornado that kills you, it's the debris. So hard hat, people, hard hat.
Okay. Yeah, that's cute that you said it's headed east, and it's cute that I asked what direction, as if I have any sense.
East is towards you.
North, south. When people say East Coast, West Coast, I'm like, wait, out west is Texas, so that's to my left.
Yeah, east is
so that's
towards
the
you.
West Coast. So that means California is the West Coast, right?
Yes, very good.
Why did I always think that was East Coast? I don't know.
Here.
Yeah.
Here's a map. We'll go over from this direction. So I'm here. Headed east will be you. In fact, you know what? Now that I'm showing you the map, there are only 3 states that we are still missing.
Who are we? Are we still missing Alaska?
Yes. So if you have any friends in Alaska, tell them to go ahead and listen to the Laugh Support Podcast. If you're in West Virginia, we don't have any West Virginia listeners, and New Hampshire. So that's the 3 holdouts right now. They're in black. Wait,
got it. Yeah, I do have a friend who's a doctor in Alaska, and there's a comedian. We know. We always talk about it. You keep saying you're going to message Angie and say listen to our podcast, but
I have. She just doesn't open her messages, so maybe she's I don't know. Maybe she's like, I'm so tired of hearing you. Why would I want to listen to your podcast? I don't know. But anyway, so.
Well, yeah. So you've had the tornadic weather. You've had parts of fence coming down. You have broken flower pots, I think, but you've survived, and you always wear your helmet. And it's like it's like my family. The women are like trying to protect the children and inside the house, and the men are standing outside watching for the tornado to come. I don't think that'll ever change.
Yeah. So good times.
Yeah. Well, I came home to my house a couple of days ago to something interesting in the garage. It was Hot Dog's shower chair from where he had his open heart surgery, and I bought a shower chair for Hot Dog when he was staying with me, to keep him safe. And my son had the shower chair out in the garage along with a recliner that he got from a move. He works for a moving company when he's not on shift at the fire department. Sometimes they'll just give you stuff. So he had a recliner and Hot Dog's shower chair in the garage. And he had friends over to watch the football game. He set up a TV in the garage, and he used Hot Dog. There he is. There's the man. He used Dad's old shower chair. Only guys would be. There's not, like, if I had daughters, I really don't feel like a daughter would have pulled that chair out and one of her friends would have been like, cool, I'll set the shower chair. I never know what's happening at my house when I'm gone, Michele. It's out of control.
Yeah, as long as the chair wasn't wet or dirty, I'd sit on it.
It wasn't like Yeah, it wasn't dirty or wet. I mean, he had open heart surgery 2 years ago. I've just hung on to it because he's elderly and I'm the one who takes care of him whenever he has something going on. But
Yep.
yeah, the girlfriend, Trey's girlfriend, was like, she was like, "Did you see the chair in the garage?" And I'm like, "I did." And she's like, "That's just disgusting. Why?" And I'm like, "I don't know. Like, I birthed him, but you chose him. You date him. Like, I can't do anything about that." So
Yeah. Yeah. That's your choice. Your choice. So, all
it's
right.
all good. It's all good. Well, we have a great guest today, Michele. Speaking
Yes.
of East Coast, West Coast. Well, I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure. Is this guest still from the California area?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Cool. All right. Tell us, Michele, who was on the show today.
Okay, so our guest today started her stand-up career in her hometown, San Diego, California.
All right.
She tours the country performing in clubs and churches and comedy festivals and corporate gigs and fundraising events. She's produced her own shows. You can hear her on Sirius XM, or you can watch her Dry Bar comedy special, All the Time Tired. Let's welcome to the Laugh Support Podcast our funny friend, and now yours, Lisa Gilbert.
Right. There she is. Hey, Lisa. Welcome to the show.
How y'all doing?
We're hanging out. We're hanging on. We're so excited to have you here on the Laugh Support Podcast. I, like Michele, probably met you before I did. I was new to the Christian Comedy Association in 2017. That was my first time ever being there. And you were there, and I got to watch you and JJ. I remember y'all hanging out together and seeing you guys perform. And I feel like I reached out to you kind of during COVID. You were doing a podcast and things, and I was just watching what you were doing. So I was so excited when Michele said she reached out and you agreed that you would come and join us on the Laugh Support Podcast.
Yeah, how could I not?
Yeah. So we talked a little bit beforehand about, the gist of the podcast. Michele has been my Laugh Support. 2018 is when I really met Michele, and first time I ever went on stage was at the CCA and did a few minutes of comedy. And Michele has been there for me. She was there that night, helped me get through it, and she's been there for me ever since. So when we started this podcast, we were like, you know what? We want to ask people who their Laugh Support has been as they've been journeying in comedy. So Lisa, when you think back to the very beginning, first time you get on stage, who do you think of as being the people in your life or person, or if there wasn't anybody, what kind of Laugh Support did you have in the beginning of your comedy career?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't think it was one person in particular. I think it was my community.
Nice.
I got kind of a funky start. I don't know if funky's the word for it, but I kind of knew that I wanted to do comedy really for a long time. I think sometimes you're the funny person and then maybe it moves into stand up. I don't know. But for me, I kind of knew. And there's a comedian by the name of Brandon Young, and he had a comedy ministry at our church in San Diego. And I reached out to him. I was like, I've always wanted to do comedy. It's weird though, because God wasn't pushing me into being part of that comedy ministry. Right. I was doing some other ministry stuff. And anytime I asked about that, I really didn't get this is where you should be.
Yeah.
So at any rate, I asked him, I came out and went and watched him at a show. And then he said, well, I'm going to be hosting this show at a church for Taylor Tomlinson. So come on out and do 5 minutes. And I'm like, 5 minutes of what?
Yeah.
What do you mean 5 minutes? I don't know. What am I? He said, just write some comedy. I'm like, wait, write some what? it's like, do some open heart surgery. Like that's what it felt like.
Right.
So anyway, he is the one that put me on stage at first. And I feel like everything from there just kind of kept going. The fortunate thing for me is I have the gift of the gab. And that's on stage, off stage, in my sleep. If you ask my husband, like it's just pretty much nonstop. So for me, being on stage, there wasn't any fear in that. It really is just about really the jokes that I have. And so I just got up there. I did 5 minutes of who knows what. Actually, it was about 4.5 minutes of who knows what. And then from there, I was on another show, and I invited everybody that knew me. You
Nice.
can't lose that way when you have an audience full of 200 people,
Right.
that 90% of those people. Like, you can't. So to answer your question, it really wasn't one person. And even now, it's not necessarily just one person. It's really a community of people. And those people are either in my comedy world or just in my regular old, part of my village, part of my community.
Michele, do you remember the first time you got to do 5 minutes? Do you remember where you were at or what that was like?
Yeah, I was up in Wisconsin, and it was my it was gonna be my debut on TV, kind of a thing, and it was for Carolyn Ray. And right before going up, right before my first 5 minutes, they said, she's got to go. We're going to just tape you guys. So it was, yeah. So my community was sitting out in the van. It was my children and my husband for that.
Nice. Nice. I love that you said when he said, just write 5 minutes of comedy. And you said, that's like saying, do brain surgery. A lot of people don't realize how complicated it is, how it is an art form, how we really do. There are setups, there are punchlines, there are,
wait, what? We're supposed to be doing what?
Right. We're working on that with Michele. We're working on that with Michele. But it isn't, and some people might think, oh, well, 5 minutes, that's nothing. But it is a lot. I remember driving about 2 hours away to do my first 5 minutes. It was a pastor, and he was having a birthday party, and he just invited comedians to come basically do kind of an open mic. He was like, and he was a comic as well. So he was like, I just want everybody to just hang out and do some material. And I'm telling you, for 2.5 hours, I just read my 5 minutes over and over and practiced it out loud and read it. My husband drove me, and I was like, don't say anything to me. I have to remember this 5 minutes of material. And it's a big deal, that first 5 minutes, right?
It's a lot. I teach a comedy class now at the local National Comedy Theater here in San Diego, and it's a 6 week. After 6 weeks, we have a showcase, and I push them for 5 minutes, and it's the beginning of like, well, what do you want to talk about? Like it's a 6 weeks of it's a lot. 5 minutes is a lot to come up with. So.
Right. And when people talk about a tight 5, anybody can stand on stage and ramble for 5 minutes.
Right.
But you're putting people up in a showcase. They're learning from you. Like, this isn't a time to wing it. This is a time to show that you are working at this craft, that you are learning how to do this, and you are giving them the best opportunity, especially you're giving them 6 weeks to get this 5 minutes together, right? To represent themselves. When you said you invited your friends to come, I've heard different people's take on that, because they're like, I remember inviting all my friends, and then I didn't know what I was doing. So later when I would invite them, they were like, oh, okay. Because they saw you just kind of, winging it, rambling, and not knowing exactly what you're doing, but knowing you're pretty funny, right? And so some people I've heard people give advice of like, oh, don't do that. Don't invite all your friends, because they'll think that's just how you are forever and not understand that you're going to evolve and get better. But I'm kind of like you. I invited people. Yeah. And now, like, the people who truly are in your corner, now I'll have them come and they'll go, wow, gosh, you've come so far. And I remember seeing you do just a few minutes, and you just did a half an hour. And, and so the people who are really, like, truly going to ride with you, they get to actually see the evolution.
Yeah. Which is so great. Think? Yeah. I have a few people that come often, and they're like, oh man, that was a good joke. You did some new stuff. And if I'm doing a show and I know there's enough people that are coming that maybe haven't seen me for a minute, then I'm excited to for them to hear what I've been working on, which is, not often anything, because I'm slow at bringing stuff. I love my jokes. I love my current jokes.
Which I don't think you should ever have to apologize for reusing material that you've done, because you worked on it, you worked hard at it, you got it to a place where it hits right. And it's like being a musician. People go to hear that bit. They're like,
100%.
oh, play Freebird again or whatever,
Yeah.
I'm thinking that's the most common thing that people keep
Yes.
shouting
Yeah.
to musicians, right? So, do the knock knock joke. I mean, they want to hear those same bits, and even if they've heard it 100 times, sometimes they're like, "Yeah, do that one again." But then there's other material. They're like, I'm over this. Find something else." So how often do you? Did you guys hear that? I don't know if you heard the thunder on that one. Okay, good. How often do you encourage the people that you're teaching to change their material, or how often do you feel like you need to change up your material?
Yeah, so it's 6 weeks. And so what I ask them, we go up the first night and I have them go right up on the stage, touch the mic, right? I don't have, it's 6 weeks. I don't have time to be wasting on nothing. So let's get you up there on stage. Yeah. I don't want you to anticipate when is that going to happen if you're nervous, right? So let's get up there the first night. Take the mic off the stand, put the stand behind you. I'll show you how to do it. And then tell me about yourself. Let's get to it. So one of the things that I am, and I don't, it's interesting because you all tour, right? You tour around and you do shows in different cities and different states and things. And other than my dry bar, which is 5 years old now, right? I'm not really doing a lot of those jokes, although it's still a funny special. I'm just, it's been a while. I hope I have new jokes, right?
Right.
My kids are older, right? So, but I feel like what I see in the community a lot is folks going up on shows and I know that it's a new joke. I know it's a new joke, one, because I see them often, and two, because it's not ready.
Yeah.
And you can either choose to go to open mics, which I do not do. I don't care for them, although I do run a clean mic, but I'm not a big fan of open mics. But I do know that there are shows where I get permission to, or I've worked on a joke enough to bring that joke in, right? So I'm gonna do 2 or 3 that I know work really well, sprinkle in this new one, and then, right? I see that too. Yeah. But it has to be to some degree ready. I'm not gonna I just wrote this in the car and I'm gonna try it here. Right? Unless it's a bar show, which I don't really do very often, but every once in a while there'll be a show where they're like, yeah, you can do whatever you want. I may try a few extra, a few new things. But I think for me, what I see is comics going on and trying their new stuff, and always have to put it on stage eventually. It's got to be somewhat ready for that.
Yeah.
So doing the same thing over and over again. There's a local comedy show here in San Diego. There's a couple of them actually. And the host is the same host every time for the most part. And that host has to go up and feels that this host has to do something new, 10 minutes of something new every week. I can tell you now, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
There are no jokes there. And you're setting the tone for the show.
Yeah.
So I would rather him just do stuff. I have some jokes that I know that I really like. I want to just yell out the joke because these are funny and these are new people. So for me, I feel like when I'm at my home club here, I feel more pressure to bring something new. They see me more than anybody else does. Even though the audiences are new audiences, I still feel that pressure. And I'm okay with that. But if I have a show on Friday night, and it's for the most part a whole new audience. There may be 10% that have seen me before, or have seen myself, Mark Christopher Lawrence, Scott Wood. Like, we're on this show, right? So we've done a lot here in the last few months together. So they may see some of the stuff there may be a small percentage of people, but for the most part, they're not. I did a theater show on Saturday night, did a show last night. None of those people had seen me before. So to me, I'm excited because I get to do the hits and the jokes that I still love. And by the way, jokes that I'm still working on.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I'm still, how am I supposed to get these jokes to be ready for a really big, important stage when it's time for that?
Yeah.
If I'm not working on it, and sometimes for me, writing happens on stage.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
I've
I'm
found
not
some of
giving
the
up. I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to give up the jokes that I love. It's my comedy career.
yeah. Yeah. I found sometimes it's not even like the punchline changed, but it's the inflection in my voice. It's the
100%.
I did a different facial expression. I did, which is why I videotape everything if possible. Sometimes it's not the best scenario, but like even I have a bit called DIY, and it's kind of mocking the reality TV shows of Chip and Joanna Gaines, right? And I used to say, "Do I look like Joanna Gaines to you?" Because I didn't marry Chip. But now when I say it, I will look at an audience member and I'll go, "Ma'am, do I look like Joanna Gaines to you?" Because if you know who she is, I am the complete opposite of her. I look totally different than her. And then I say, this is the only thing that I change, because I did not marry Chip. And I do that on the mic with Chip. And with that little pop, change the joke, change the laugh, just because of the pop. But I've been doing that joke for 2 years. It was 2 years before I did.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
of a sudden, it's like, that's it. That gets
Yeah.
the laugh. And it wasn't even a change of a punchline. It's just because you've done it so many times that I did something just naturally. And it was like, that's the deal. So I
Yeah.
love what you said about like, that's the step that you want to be able to take to that. As you get higher in levels, that stuff is going to be so tight and so good because you've worked on it over and over and
Yep.
over and over again.
I'm trying to think of the comic. Michelle, you may remember him. Man, I feel bad that I can't remember his name, but I'm just going to say it because of my age. My memory's going. But he does a bug joke. Do you know who I'm talking about?
Marty Simpson, the bug
Marty
man.
Simpson.
Yeah.
Does the bug joke. And I'll never forget him saying, it has taken me, and I want to say 10 years, I could be wrong in that time, but it was a long period of time before he finally got that joke to where, and it is so good.
It is.
Gosh, that is still, I mean, it's been years since I've seen that, or him really for that matter. And probably my first CCA when I was just a baby comic, didn't know what I was doing. And I'll never forget that. And so for me, if you need me to bring something new to a stage that you've seen me on, then I may not be, this may not be the right show for me.
Right.
And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. It's your show. You're booking it. You're bringing the audience, right? I'm bringing people in too, but this is, I feel like I have an advantage because although I retired so that I could be home with my kids and not see them for 24 hours because I work all day and then I go do a gig and I don't see them till morning.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fortunate to be able to really do more shows because I'm home all day. And I take my kids to school and I pick my kids up from school. I do some training. I do some other stuff. But my comedy I'm not a full-time comic in that this is my salary.
Yeah.
And so I do feel like it does afford me the opportunity to be able to say, I don't think I'm a good fit.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you more questions about it to see if I'm a good fit. And also my kids and my husband come first.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just, that's a decision I made. And so I may not be able to do everything because one of my kids is a championship game, or I could just,
Yeah.
I love that so much that you have prioritized what's the most important in your life and in your career, and that you're also asking the questions to find out if you're the right fit for an event, because there's nothing worse than being on a stage where you should not be at because you just don't connect, and then you go away feeling like a failure. They didn't enjoy it, so then they're not going to give you a good review. So it's all the negatives that just kind of swirl down, and it could have been avoided if you just simply asked a few more questions. So I love how wise you are about what you're choosing. Now, I think that's just wisdom for any comedian, especially if they're just starting out, or if they've been doing it for a long time and they didn't realize what's my problem? Why am I not doing well? You shouldn't be on some of the stages.
Yeah. And how well can you adapt, and how well, I mean, you all remember, right? In the beginning, I'm about 10 and a half years in, in the very beginning, and you're taking all those shows. Like for me, I know I'm taking those bar shows, those tips and taco shows, right? Nobody pays for anything, but you get a taco and and a glass of wine, maybe, like, there you are. And it's so exciting. And right. And so, and every once in a while I do those shows because it's fun and it's good to, those shows are fun.
Yeah.
But I also don't, like you said, Michele, I can definitely, before I go on, adjust the jokes that I'm going to do and how I'm going to do those jokes. The show I did on Saturday night was a beautiful theater, and the audience was probably 50 to 80, 85.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so, fortunately for me, I talk about my triplets and my crazy husband, and it really is for most audiences. But I still had to change a bit for certain references, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's not just asking, tell me about the show, who's the audience, who's going to be there, and what are they doing before and after? When is the buffet line? Like all those things. How about the lighting? Is there a mic? Is it a, and these are all the things that you absolutely learn by being in a situation where the mic doesn't working, and that's the only one they have, or accepting a really cool, decent paying birthday party in someone's living room and there's 5 people, you do some of those things, you do learn as you go along. But I think I tell the new comics that I teach, go to shows. Because you think you watch stuff on Netflix and that's going to give you the experience of being and seeing a comedian. It's not. Go to a show. And in fact, go early and sit down. How do they seat people? How does the wait staff walk around the room? Do they crouch down so they're not in your way as you're talking? Or are they just up? Hey, did you want another Miller Lite? Like, right?
Yeah.
How does the club work, with their staff? And then where is the green room? Does somebody come in the green room? There's so many things that as a comedian, you should be watching and paying attention to all of it.
Yeah.
I think also comedians, it wouldn't hurt to book a show, to just book a show, to see what it feels like to have to get the comics, get the butts and seats, first of all, pay out people, collect money for tickets, like all that kind of stuff. If you have an idea of kind of what that feels like, it does help you a little bit to be a little less judgmental when you do walk into a comedic space or a show and, there's half the crowd that they said there was, and they sit them all in the back.
Yeah.
Yeah. And don't close off the seats. How would you know to close off some of the seats so you have the audience forward if you don't go and pay attention to all of the parts of comedy?
I think ask questions too. When you talk about that, I remember the first time I booked a show was here in town. Robert G. Lee was coming in to headline. Christy Condor was going to host, and then I was going to feature. And I had never booked a show like that before. So I just sent to a few friends, hey, this is my first time doing this. If you have time, I know you've booked shows before. What are the questions that you ask the church? What are the questions that I should ask the headliner and the host, And so there were things that I didn't think about, will there be volunteers there? Is someone going to be, in the parking lot handling, the directions, the sound person, the light person, what would the headliner want in the green room for them, so like
Yeah.
all of those things I didn't. And then also because I'd met Christy and become friends with her, and she'd done a lot of shows with Bone Hampton, and I knew all them through a writing group we were in Nashville. I could trust that she was somebody who I knew would have my back, who would be watching out for me, who knew that she could very easily go, don't do that. What are you doing?
Yeah.
Or, hey, we need to block off the side, or, whatever. And so I think not being afraid to ask questions is really important too. I love what you said about, as Michele pointed out, you have priorities. And I think priorities help people not have identity crisis. I feel like when COVID happened, there were so many comedians that was their only identity. That was all that mattered to them in life. That's who they were to their core. They were nothing but a comedian. And if they weren't a comedian, they were nothing. There are other comics who go and do a show, but because they don't know who they are or who their audience is yet, they have an identity crisis. They feel like they failed, because they said yes, as you said. If someone come up and was like, Lisa, we want you to do 45 minutes, all construction worker jokes. If you take the job, you're trying to write stuff specifically for that. You go up, it doesn't work, it can be. And yes, Michele has her hat, but it can cause those identity crises. And knowing that you're a mom and you're a wife, and this is what's the most important in life. When things happen, it helps keep, I think, from having that identity crisis.
Yeah. And it has to be your own thing. I went to my local club here, Mic Drop. It's my home club, and they do a lot of amazing things for comics and just the community. And they just did a weekend. They called it a winter camp for comics, and they had all these workshops, writing and stage presence, and just right. And it was a really just comics that gave some incredible and valuable lessons and ideas and thoughts and all that kind of stuff. But the thing about it is that it's what I tell people are my experiences or things that I've seen. Maybe I haven't experienced it, but things that I've seen that other comics have expressed or whatever that is. But I may have my ideas about how things are supposed to be, but really it's subjective.
Yeah.
It's really how if you have the opportunity to have your comedy career be what you want your comedy career to be, or what you're working towards, right? Yeah. But at the same time, knowing, and I think because of my age, I just hit 57. I think because of my age and the time that I started to do comedy, my thing is like, look, I got to answer to God, my husband, my best friend, like, right? Yeah. Sometimes my kids, depending on what they have to say, like, that's what matters to me. And the comedy doesn't matter less to me. But I have 13-year-olds that just started junior high school. Yeah. I'm only 14 years into marriage. I don't want to just be married. We've worked very hard to be where we are right now, both in our marriage and with our children. Look, I've got to keep that going. Yeah. So it may not be for everybody, but I think it's just to respect where people's journeys are. Yeah. I know plenty of comics that are like wanting to be headlining comics in clubs, and really the hope there is, Conan, Netflix, just that, and it's a beautiful journey for people. It's not mine. Now, if Netflix were to call me and be like, "Hey, Lisa," no, I'm not going to say no, Netflix. Right? I'm not stupid, but I'm also going to be a very high paid, very sought after, and I mean high paid just in that, my goal to be a higher paid comedic speaker and comedian is so that when I have a weekend gig, I'm paid enough to bring the entire family. That's the goal.
That's a great goal.
right? It's not to be rich or whatever. I'm already, I'm rich in so many things already. But if I can't bring my whole family out. So if I can bring my whole family out for stuff, then yeah. But I'm probably going to be I may not be this big top named, I go on the top 10 speaker list or the top 50 women speakers. And I have no idea who any of these ladies are.
So if you're gonna do like that speaking route and have your whole family come out with you, then because I've been watching a lot of reels and a lot of things on business and things like that, you could hire your kids, hire them to be the person that works the table. Or do you have a book out? Do you have a book or merchandise?
I have shirts. I am just now. I think because of the stage, I'm working on the website. I'm writing the book.
Yeah. So you could have your kids be the people that you would hire, because I know your boys, they're dancers, right?
Yeah.
And are all three of your kids actors, or is
No,
it
just the boys are dancers. We did some acting when they were young.
Yeah. But like you could have one be, your the person that does all your TikTok stuff, or like you could hire them out for those things, and then it's part of the job, right? So they all get to come with, because it's part of the job. They're all getting paid. It'd be great. I wish my kids would want to go on the road with me, but alas, none of them do.
Well, and your kids too. I love that you said, that you're mindful that where they are in their phase in life. I've only had one joke. I only had one video or one joke that I did that my son Trey, for the most part, Trey and Ty don't pay any attention to what I do. But I did one joke and it was hilarious. It was like a TikTok video or something. And I remember him coming in and saying, I don't like that. Like, I don't like that at all. And I was like, really? And he said, yeah. I was like, well, babe, I was just, whatever. And he goes, yeah, but I don't like it. And I said, okay, it's gone. And I deleted it right away. And I was like, I hope you always understand, because I usually run everything past him. But this was something that didn't. And I think it had more with something that was going on at school than it actually had with the video. It was just the timing of it. And it made him feel some kind of way. And I'm like, there's not a video, there's not a joke that is more important to me than you feeling safe and respected and loved by me. Like, it's gone. And I just deleted it because that wasn't, there's a million other jokes. If I can't write more, then I'm probably not that good of a comedian anyway.
It's funny. My kids, that's the great thing about working clean. It's the great thing about doing comedy in venues where your kids can go. Then when mom goes out to do comedy, they know exactly what I'm doing. Yeah. And so my daughter comes often just because if it's a women's event or something like that. And this last couple of weeks, I did a fundraiser at a church, and they needed somebody to pull the names out of the raffle and call the numbers. And I called my daughter right up on stage. So, it's important for me that they know what I'm doing. Sometimes if I take them all to, they are very specific about which jokes they want me to tell. So then Elijah said, I feel like this particular joke, you have a couple jokes about me, and it's okay if you take one of the ones that are mine and give it to Nathan. And I said, well, I appreciate that. That's really great. But you can't rewrite my jokes. So sorry, buddy.
Well,
I'm with you on that. I mean, look, everybody has whatever it is you choose to do. I know comics that are, that have a spouse at home and they are out every weekend doing their stuff. Like it's not it's just really about choice. And I am embracing the choice that I have. And the person that I have to go through is sitting down with my husband and saying, hey, I got this gig, or I got this, and I have that. And trying to do less around certain amounts of times of the year when he's home more often, or, whatever that looks like. So I can support him in his reffing and umpiring, and right. I mean, it's family is important to me, and I have one, and I don't want to squander that gift.
Yeah. That's wisdom. So he's a umpire.
Yeah. So my husband works at, so I was a social worker for 25 years.
Yeah.
And he was staying home with the kids. He umpires women's softball, college,
Wow.
and then he refs high school and college football.
Wow.
So
I
he
bet
did
there's
that,
so much foul language at your
and
house.
yeah, well, with all of it, yeah. So he was the one that stayed home. He would take the kids to school
Yeah.
and pick them up, and I would do my full-time job, and then go and do my gigs, whatever. And then I just was like, I just want to be home now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
can we switch? And he said, yeah. So he works at Trader Joe's, so we've got some health insurance and a nice discount. And
Nice.
but in February, he is going to leave the job, Trader Joe's. I've talked him into 2 days a week. We'll see how that goes. So that he can be home more often and I can really pursue this next piece of comedy. But again, it's got to be both of us really being okay with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not always going to be 100%. Y'all are married. You know what that is. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not always going to be 100%. Sometimes you want something, and they're not too sure about it, but they're like, you know what? You got to just do what you have to do, and we'll figure it out. It may not always be 100%, but that has to be my priority.
Yeah. Yeah. I can honestly say that I can see you, Lisa, being the most successful woman in comedy and in life and with your family because you are carrying such a great balance. You're working so hard to make sure that your balance is good. And on top of that, you're very talented, you're hilarious, you have a lot of wisdom, and because of those things, it's not just like, well, I'm going to stay home with the kids cuz they're my kids. No, like you're intentional about everything that you're doing, and because of that intentionality, I can see that you have built such a great base and a great foundation for your career and for your husband's to just continue growing and getting bigger and bigger in that sense. So yeah, I'm super excited for you and what's coming next. I really am.
I'm excited, but I'm nervous. It's funny because I'm nervous, but I can also see it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's very yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's I'm excited. I'm very excited. So I'm working on the website. This is I had to stop myself from saying you should have already had a website. Like you've been doing comedy for 10 years, but you're gonna it doesn't any good to say I shoulda.
Yeah.
Do it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had a counselor who said, "You'll should all over yourself."
Right. Yeah, my doctor used to say that. 100%. Don't.
And I'm like, yeah, I get Michele. I would like to apologize for Michelle's umpire foul language pun that she snuck in there. It's very shameful sometimes, the puns that Michele throws out. She's only allowed one a day, so I feel like I shouldn't have to deal with your bad joke later, Michele. Okay, so we talk about.
I didn't take offense to it at all. Not at all.
we talk about in the journey, have you had an opportunity to be someone else's laugh support? And have you ever had a time that you felt like you were alone or didn't have support? Now, I know with teaching, you are definitely being supportive of other people in their comedy journeys. But have you had a time, or even now as you're transitioning, because this is it's a whole different vein that you're going into from like club shows and things like that, to be very specific in what you're doing there. Have you had a time that you felt like you're just on Lisa Island, kind of out here by yourself figuring things out?
No. I think because I'm in this community, I will have to say it's taken my husband and I a minute to figure out this piece. So sometimes there was a time where I felt like I go to a show and he's like, oh, it's always something. All right, you have another show, right? When I'm working and I'm just constantly just gone.
Yeah.
And then I do feel like I had this really great show, and then I come home and I'm like, I just wish that you would be a little more excited.
Yeah.
So, and I say that to say, look, I don't want somebody to listen to a podcast and think that this is the perfect life of Lisa Gilbert, right? It is not. It's taken time and patience and effort and prayer and therapy and all kinds of stuff for us to be in a place where we are and communicate better where we are. But I think in all honesty, if I'm being transparent, it's just been those times where I feel like my husband is just like, I just want you home.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And me learning how to not take it as you don't support my dream.
Right.
You just want your wife too.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so just figuring out what that's going to look like for us. But other than that, I mean, really, I'm from San Diego. This is my community. And I built it from being in the same church for over 20 years, working in the same job for over 25 years, right? Being in the comedy community here for over 10 years. So I am, I have really built, and grown and fertilized this,
Yes.
my village and these people around me. I also think that you kind of get what you give. So I'm not above, I will absolutely help you wherever I possibly can, if you're ready for it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I mean, I'm not going to tell you that you suck.
Right.
But I may say, how do you feel that set went?
Yeah.
Or I may say, I've seen better. And I expect the same. When I walk off a stage, look, I bring my husband sometimes to hard shows. And after the show, he's going to say, that was good. He also is going to say, that was really good. But man, you forgot that face that you make every time.
Yeah.
Or that, so I'm not going to give anybody else what I'm not going to, ask for back. So I haven't really felt lonely in my comedy career.
I love what you said about your husband. It was just a change in perspective is all it was. You went from like having a perspective, not choosing not to have the perspective of, oh, he doesn't support me, but the perspective of he just wants to be part of the priority. Like he loved, like if he was like, yeah, Lisa, go more, never come home, right? Then it'd be like, wait, we really have a problem in this marriage.
Yeah.
But when you have someone who just wants a little more of your time and of you or your attention or whatever, but it was a matter of you just looking at a situation the same way we look at jokes sometimes. You just change the perspective. You look at it from different perspectives to try and see the full picture on the situation. I'd love to hear though, because sometimes we'll have comedians who are like, yeah, I've never had anybody support me. And other times it's like your journey where it is, there have been people from the beginning, and what an absolute blessing that is. I wonder, since you're teaching, and this could be a piece of advice, either comedy wise or just life or whatever. We usually ask before we have a guest go, is there something that someone's told you that really has stuck with you and you found that a valuable lesson or a valuable piece of advice that you either carry through comedy or through life?
I think comedic wise, I said to my husband once, man, I'm so nervous. Like, I'm super nervous about this show. And another comedian heard him say, you don't have to be scared. You don't have to be nervous. You'll be fine. And the comedian said, look, if you're nervous, you care.
Yeah.
So I always thought about that. Like when I go into a show and I'm like, whatever, this show's going to be whatever it is. It's tips and tacos, whatever. But I still have to care about it. If I'm going to hit that stage, it's important for me to care about the 4 people in the audience or the 4,000 people in the audience.
Yeah.
So I think there's that. I think also, I grew up with the idea of being a nice person. So I feel like despite anything that's happened in my life, I'm going to be a nice person. I'm going to be helpful if you need it. You need a bed? Look, I will find you a bed. I may not be able to find you housing, but I don't know, like maybe a car, maybe. I certainly cannot find my single friends' husbands.
Right.
Can't do that for you. I mean, you can have mine if you want, and then you may decide you don't want one. But yeah, I mean, I think it's again, I think you know who you are maybe is then you produce that as far as the people that are in your the people that are around you. And I don't need to shoo away the people that aren't nice. I think I attract those people.
Mm.
And so, yeah, I don't know that there's any one person that's really said anything necessarily. I think it's just been the journey and being a lifelong learner of life that I just kind of soak up what people say and analyze it. And if I can use it, great. And if I can't, then, maybe somebody else can. But
yeah. Michele VanDusen, any closing thoughts before we send Lisa back to the green room where all the amazing snacks are waiting for her?
So I was just wondering, why did the comedian ride a tricycle to her gigs?
Here we go, Lisa. Here we go. Again, I apologize. Why did the comedian ride a tricycle to her gigs, Michele?
Because she didn't want to be too tired, just exhausted. Come on,
friends.
That was funny. So,
those are borderline dad jokes. Aren't those dad jokes that you're telling?
I try not to encourage it, but it happens every episode.
No, I actually wrote that one because you have triplets, and I thought, to play off of your all the time tired dry bar thing, I thought, oh yeah, you're not gonna ever. So I guess I should have changed it to, why does Lisa always ride a tricycle to her gigs? Because she doesn't want to be too tired, just exhausted. So that was it.
That's so much better, Michele. Thanks for the backstory.
That's so funny.
We love you. We thank you so much for being here. Michele, if you'll scroll across the bottom of the screen, folks, definitely check out Lisa Gilbert Comedy on all socials, and also her dry bar, All the Time Tired, Michele. Tired
and exhausted.
Exhausted. Lisa Gilbert Comedy. Again, definitely follow her. Lisa, we appreciate you so much for being on the show.
Thank you.
Michele's going to kick you to the green room for a few minutes. Please stick around so we can give you a proper goodbye. Michele, I think you've gone too far this time.
Nah, I did not. Come on. All right. So here, let's get to your tip of the week. What do you got? What do you got for us?
All right. Tip of the week, Michele, is don't do it.
What?
Three C's. I'm giving you 3 C's not to do. This can be in comedy. This can be in life. Okay. Do not compete. Do not compare, and do not complain. In the comedy world, a lot of times we are working with our friends, or we're not. We're working with other comedians. If you are that person in the green room who is always competitive with the other comedians, if you're always complaining about the other comics, right? And if you're always comparing yourself to someone else who you're not supposed to be. God created you to be you and for you to do you, even when it comes to your time on stage. So those are the 3 C's today. If you catch yourself doing these 3 C's, compete, compare, or complain, just don't do it. Don't do it. All right. So that's the tip of the week. We've already heard your bad jokes. Do we have to hear another one?
Are you, wait, I'm sorry. Are you complaining about my joke? You know what? Okay. So I'm not even going to talk about, why was the chicken so funny? Oh, because she thought she was a real comedian hen. All right. So you guys, thank you so much. Make sure you check out our socials. Try to find us where it's Junebug Comedy on all the socials. It's Michele VanDusen or Michele's Comedy. And then, of course, check out our Laugh Support podcast on Instagram, YouTube, and all the things. Go ahead, June. What's the last thing you're going to say?
I always say Jesus and Junebug loves you. And Michele, tell them goodbye.
Goodbye. Thanks for listening.